on the panel, working on the left, and Tipple is a former employee on its council and in the library staff. Well, should we start? Adam, would you like to kick off?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I don't know really what to say. I'm here kind of in the absence of anyone that works for Barnet, still works for Barnet, for obvious reasons. I think that was the original intention, but as I've recently left, I think that's why I'm here. Maybe if I talk about why I became a librarian. I mean, I drifted into becoming a librarian initially, but I became committed to being a librarian because, you know, when you think about what you want to be at school, the thing that I wanted to do was be able to help people. I was never going to be a doctor. I probably haven't got the charisma and knowledge to teach well, and I've become involved in libraries and I saw what they did. And it was fantastic. You know, there's a public misconception that libraries are about books, and for a while it has been, but what they've always been about is information and learning. And the format for that in the past, or recent, you know, was books, but that's changed. And that was what I was interested in, providing information and learning to everyone. It didn't matter whether whether you were a millionaire or you didn't have 2 pennies to rub together, you could come in and expect the same service, whether it be, and it was information about anything. It wasn't just the latest Daniel Steele book or the latest bestseller. It was about life-changing things. People who had been diagnosed with something horrible at the doctors, they didn't know what it meant, they'd come in and we'd help them find out, not just find the information for them, but help them understand it. Interpret it and use it, whether they were starting a business, whether they were applying for a job, all these life-changing things, the complicated processes for government bureaucracy, helping people navigate those things. And that's why I became passionate about being a librarian. The move away from books changed that. It didn't end it, it changed it. Whereas before, the things that we would refer to might be, you know, like would be reference sources that we had or information, the government information that we had. Much more of it became online. But it was still, just because that information is online doesn't mean everyone has access to it. It doesn't mean that everybody's able to use it. People still have the difficulty of navigating difficult government websites for simple things. You know, I applied to get my bin collected the other day, and it's quite a simple process for me. I use the internet all the time, but I can't imagine my mum doing it. You know, so that became more about what we're there for. Helping people access information. It's all very well saying, oh, you know, Google can find it or Wikipedia can find it, but Wikipedia is not going to help you find leave to stay in the country or things like that. And that's kind of what we do. But at some point along the line, it became less about providing that, and it became more and more making excuses for why we do it. It became, you know, people had come in expecting that still, and rightly, that's what we should be doing. But more and more it seemed to become, I'd be apologising for why the computers didn't work, or why we didn't have that textbook that you needed for your course, and why we couldn't get it for you. So it became quite demoralising. And I think that's something that's commonly felt within libraries. But it's not something, I don't know. Yeah, so I think that's why I sort of like became demoralised with working in libraries. And it's a problem that we face. But people still want those things. People still want that libraries, and that's what libraries should be. You know, there should be these places of information and learning. And if you look at libraries where they've, like for example, South Rian up the road, the library manager there, she was very good at making it a welcoming place for students to come and study. And there places, things like that, you start to see footfall increasing. And that's another thing that's changed. It's not, we talk about the amount of people borrowing books going down, but the amount of time people spend in libraries is much greater now. You know, people come into the library and stay. So, yeah, it's kind of, I suppose that's the end of what I had to say, really.
If, yes,
Are you willing to say what it was like working for Barnet? Or is that too politically hot?
No, it's not politically hot. I think there's, you know, I don't work for them anymore.
Yes.
And it would feel wrong. Well, no, it didn't. It's very much, it's very frustrating working in libraries because, you know, you've got a good idea of what the public want and you want the same as they do. The problem is feeding that up. I mean, there was quite a bit, I had to admit, there was quite a bit of jealousy. Say, for example, in this library we opened, the things that you could do, you know, like the public debates that you have, like we're having tonight. Now, I know it's a bit, we're all a bit one-sided here, and it would be nice, and it's very difficult to get cross-party engagement, or cross-political engagement and things, but things like that would educate or enable people to take part in politics locally, things like that. You know, just some of the things that you could do when you weren't restricted by sort of like the risk-averse nature of Barnet Council's management. I mean, quite often if you wanted to do, I mean, if I wanted to do something, then quite often I'd do it first, then talk to my manager about it, because then you'd have reasons why you can't. Yeah, also very much that it's a place of, it becomes demoralising, because like I say, we want to do all these wonderful things. You become a librarian or you become involved in libraries because you want to provide for people. You work with the public demand these things, you want to be able to provide them for them, and you want to make those arguments to your management or up the line. But at the end of the day, you're frustrated because you have no power. You have you can't do it for the complaints, but you're also to blame. Do you know what I mean? For, I don't know. Well, yeah.
thanks. Any more questions? Because
I would say it's particularly demoralised now with the plans that they've got for libraries, which is basically essentially sort of like either closing most of them or closing them all in all but name. And I see people that I used to work with, and their response is kind of, well, we're kind of just waiting for the axe to chop. You're kind of managing a service in decline.
I do have one other question. You said something about how it became demoralized because people expected you to have a certain book that you didn't have, or maybe the computer wasn't working. Is this because public expectation of libraries is higher?
I don't know. I don't think it was. I mean, I started working in libraries in the early 90s, and that's what people expected from libraries then. They expected us to be the front face of the council as well. I mean, Action Points kind of formalised that a bit more. So I don't know, over 20 years, no, I just think we've been, I do think that I had to be honest, and it sounds like I'm sort of like being down on libraries, but I do think that it's kind of been run down. I mean, getting everybody online, libraries were instrumental in that. The National Grid for Learning, installing computers everywhere, enabling people to get on, you know, was a great contributor to it. But at the end of the day, that network that they put in is 10, 15 years out of date. So you can put all the new computers in you like, and that's one of the investment programs that they started at the beginning of the year, but it's still going through an incredibly slow network. And this is why you have, you know, when things go down in Barnet, quite often they're going down in Haringey as well. So I don't want to get, you know, and that was one of the benefits of being in Europe. You could argue that it was, you know, benefits of the foresight of the government at the time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you both. I'm quite happy to have questions coming in, because I think it'll help the debate. And if people have got really solid, good ideas for action of how we persuade Barnet Council not to close any libraries, then we'll have done something good tonight. Barbara.